Welcome, dear listener, to a calm exploration of the hidden darkness within one of animation's most beloved shows. Tonight, we're going to uncover every dark secret, every hidden detail, every disturbing truth that Gravity Falls embedded in its seemingly lighthearted story. This is designed to be a gentle journey through darkness. We'll explore mysteries, conspiracies, tragic backstories, and unsettling implications, all delivered in a soothing, documentary style, perfect for drifting off to sleep. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's begin our descent into the secrets that Gravity Falls tried to hide. Gravity Falls appeared to be a charming show about twins having a summer adventure in a weird town. It aired on Disney Channel, a network known for family-friendly content. It had bright colors, silly jokes, quirky characters. But beneath that cheerful surface lurked something much darker. The show's creator, Alex Hirsch, embedded layer upon layer of hidden content, coded messages that needed to be deciphered, background details that told entire stories, implications that became horrifying the more you thought about them. Some of these secrets were meant to be found, puzzles for dedicated fans to solve. Others were so subtle, so carefully hidden, that they went unnoticed for years. And some might have been too dark for a children's show. Things that slipped past network censors or were deliberately disguised. Tonight, we're going to explore all of it. Every cipher, every hidden message, every dark implication, every tragedy, every conspiracy, every unsettling truth. We'll move slowly, methodically, giving each secret the attention it deserves. There's no rush here, just a calm, thorough exploration of everything Gravity Falls hid in plain sight. Let's begin with the town itself. The founding of Gravity Falls. Gravity Falls wasn't always called Gravity Falls. The area had other names before European settlers arrived, names given by the indigenous peoples who originally lived there and understood its strangeness. When settlers did arrive in the 1840s, they noticed something wrong with the place immediately. Compasses spun wildly. Animals behaved strangely. People reported seeing things that shouldn't exist. Most settlers moved on, unwilling to build lives in such an unsettling place. But a few stayed. A few were attracted to the weirdness rather than repelled by it. The town's founder, Nathaniel Northwest, claimed to have established Gravity Falls. Statues of him stood throughout the town. The Northwest family was considered the town's royalty, its most prestigious lineage. But this was a lie. The truth, hidden in historical documents and whispered by those who knew, was far darker. Nathaniel Northwest didn't found the town. He hired others to do it. Lumberjacks, laborers, ordinary people who built the town with their own hands. And Northwest didn't just fail to credit them. He actively erased them from history. He destroyed records. He intimidated anyone who spoke the truth. He built a legacy on the erasure of those who actually did the work. But the darkness goes deeper than historical revision. The waste dumped beneath. When the Northwest family built their mansion, they needed to dispose of construction waste. Rather than properly removing it, they simply buried it. Wood scraps, metal fragments, toxic materials, all dumped into a pit and covered over. But they didn't just dump construction waste, they dumped bodies. Workers who died during construction, whether from accidents or other causes, were simply buried with the rubble. No funerals, no records, no acknowledgement. These people, who had built the town and the mansion, became literal foundation. Their bones mixed with debris beneath the Northwest estate. The haunting that would later plague the Northwest family wasn't random supernatural activity. It was those workers, buried and forgotten, seeking recognition and justice for what had been done to them. The ghost that terrorized the Northwests during their annual party was the spirit of a lumberjack, one of the many who had been erased from history. His curse, that everyone would be turned to wood, was poetic justice. They wanted to be part of the town's legacy. They would become wood, just like the lumber they'd been forced to cut. The native history. Before settlers arrived, indigenous peoples lived in the area that became Gravity Falls. They understood the weirdness, had learned to coexist with it, had developed traditions and knowledge to navigate the supernatural dangers. The show barely touches on this history. A few artifacts in museums, passing references, nothing substantial. This absence is itself a secret, the erasure of an entire people's relationship with the land. What happened to these original inhabitants? The show doesn't say, but we can infer. When settlers arrived, bringing disease and displacement and violence, the indigenous population would have suffered. Some likely fled, others likely died. Their knowledge of Gravity Falls' weirdness died with them or was dismissed by settlers as superstition. This loss had consequences. The settlers didn't understand what they were dealing with, leading to deaths and disasters that might have been prevented. The few artifacts that remain, ceremonial masks, ancient totems, are treated as curiosities in museums, stripped of context and meaning. The people who created them, who understood them, are gone. This erasure is one of Gravity Falls' darkest secrets, hidden not through active concealment, but through absence. The show takes place on stolen land, built over erased history, and barely acknowledges this foundation of violence and displacement. The geological anomaly. Beneath Gravity Falls lies something that shouldn't exist, a massive deposit of weirdness in crystallized form. It's what makes the town strange, what allows the supernatural to exist there, what weakens the barrier between dimensions. But what is this deposit, really? Where did it come from? One theory, never explicitly confirmed, but heavily implied, it's a wound in reality itself. Something happened in the location that became Gravity Falls, something catastrophic, cosmic, wrong. A tear in the fabric of space-time that never fully healed. This would explain why weirdness concentrates there, why creatures from other dimensions can slip through, why time behaves strangely, why impossible things happen routinely. The town isn't just weird, it's built on a fundamental break in reality, a place where the normal laws of physics don't fully apply because those laws were damaged here long ago. What could cause such damage? The show never says, but it must have been something immense. A dimensional collision? A failed reality warping experiment from some ancient civilization? A natural cosmic catastrophe? Whatever it was, its effects persist. Gravity Falls will never be normal. The weirdness is baked into its fundamental structure, literally embedded in the ground beneath it, and everyone who lives there is living on top of this wound, in reality, mostly unaware of what lies beneath their feet. The town's unusually high death rate. If you pay attention to background details in Gravity Falls, you'll notice something disturbing. The town has an unusually high number of graves, memorials, and references to deaths. The local cemetery is massive for a town of Gravity Falls' size. Headstones date back over a century, representing far more deaths than a town of a few thousand people should accumulate. Some of these deaths have explanations. The lumberjack workers buried at the Northwest Estate, victims of the various supernatural creatures that haunt the forest, people who made deals with Bill Cipher. But others remain mysterious. Who are all these people, buried in Gravity Falls? Why are there so many graves? One possibility: the town attracts people who are running from something, hiding from something, or seeking something. These people often meet bad ends. The weirdness that draws them also endangers them. Another possibility: the town itself is dangerous in ways not fully explored in the show. The casual acceptance of weird events might mask a darker truth, that people die in Gravity Falls all the time, and the survivors have learned to just accept it. Notice how quickly people return to normal after traumatic events. After Weirdmageddon, after seeing their neighbors transformed into furniture and the sky turn red, the town just rebuilds. People carry on. There's a resilience there that seems almost unnatural. Perhaps it has to be unnatural. Perhaps the only way to live in Gravity Falls is to develop an abnormal tolerance for trauma and death. Those who can't adapt leave. Those who stay become hardened to horrors that would traumatize people elsewhere. The children of Gravity Falls grow up seeing impossible things, experiencing traumas that would mark children elsewhere for life, and they just continue. Is that resilience, or is it something the town does to people, changing them to make them suitable for living in a place that shouldn't exist? The memory erasing gun, the Society of the Blind Eye, possessed a memory erasing gun, which they used liberally on anyone who witnessed weirdness in Gravity Falls. They erased memories for decades, trying to help people forget the traumatic things they'd seen. But think about the implications of this device existing and being used regularly for years. How many people in Gravity Falls have massive gaps in their memories? How many residents have had their minds altered repeatedly, experiences stolen from them, identities partially erased? The memory gun doesn't just remove memories, it changes who you are. Your experiences make you who you are. Remove enough experiences, and you become someone else entirely. Some residents of Gravity Falls might have been memory wiped so many times, they're barely the people they were born as. They've been edited, redacted, censored by well-meaning people who thought forgetting was better than remembering. And what about the side effects? We see Old Man McGucket, who used the memory gun on himself so many times he went from brilliant inventor to homeless eccentric. His mind was destroyed by repeated erasure. How many other people in Gravity Falls have suffered similar degradation? How many cases of early onset dementia or erratic behavior are actually the result of the Society's interventions? The Society of the Blind Eye thought they were helping, but they were actually conducting a mass mind control operation, altering the memories and identities of the entire town without consent. Even after the Society was stopped, the damage remained. All those erased memories, all those altered people, there's no way to restore what was taken. The victims of the memory gun will live the rest of their lives with holes in their identity, never knowing what they lost. The government's knowledge. The US government knows about Gravity Falls. They know it's weird. They've been monitoring it for decades, but they don't intervene. They don't warn people. They don't evacuate the town or quarantine it or do anything to protect the residents from the supernatural dangers that exist there. Why? The most benign explanation: they don't know how to handle it. The weirdness defies their understanding. They monitor it, but can't control it. The darker explanation: they're studying it. Gravity Falls is an experiment, a natural laboratory where they can observe how supernatural phenomena affect a population. The residents are unwitting test subjects in a long-term study. The darkest explanation: they're using it. The weirdness of Gravity Falls might be valuable to the government in ways we don't fully understand. Maybe they're trying to weaponize it. Maybe they're trying to replicate it elsewhere. After Weirdmageddon, when an entire town experienced a dimensional invasion, government agents arrived. They didn't help. They didn't evacuate. They documented, collected samples, and left. The message was clear. Gravity Falls was on its own. The government would watch, but not protect. Whatever happened, there was acceptable collateral damage in pursuit of some larger goal. The residents of Gravity Falls live in a town that their own government has written off as expendable. They are not protected citizens. They are subjects of observation, living in a weird zone that official policy has decided to contain rather than help. The cursed land. There's a reason Gravity Falls is weird. Beyond the geological anomaly, the land itself might be cursed. Throughout the show, we see evidence that the location has a will of its own, a kind of malevolent intelligence that influences events. Things happen that seem designed to trap people, to hurt them, to feed on their suffering. The forest grows in impossible ways, creating mazes that shift and change. Buildings develop impossible geometry. Time loops occur with disturbing frequency. People get lost in areas they know well, as if the landscape itself is confusing them. Some curses are explicit, the Northwest Ghost's curse, for example. But others are more subtle, woven into the fabric of the town itself. Perhaps the indigenous peoples who originally lived there knew this. Perhaps that's part of why their history is so carefully erased, because their knowledge of the curse, their understanding of how to appease or avoid it, would reveal truths the town's current inhabitants don't want to face. If the land is cursed, then everyone living there is subject to that curse. Every resident, every visitor, everyone who spends time in Gravity Falls is touched by whatever malevolent force permeates the location. And curses have purposes. They exist for reasons. What does Gravity Falls' curse want? What is it trying to accomplish? The show never fully answers this question, but we can observe its effects: isolation, suffering, the normalization of trauma, the erosion of memory and identity, the barrier between Gravity Falls and the outside world that makes it difficult for people to leave or for outsiders to truly understand what happens there. The curse keeps Gravity Falls weird, and the weirdness keeps people trapped, changed, lost. A cycle that's been running for over a century with no clear end in sight. Stan's criminal past. Stanley Pines wasn't just a con man. He was a criminal who had been on the run for decades, operating under multiple identities, wanted by authorities in several states. The Mystery Shack itself was founded on crime, a tourist trap designed to fleece visitors, selling fake artifacts, lying about exhibits, committing casual fraud on a daily basis. But the casual nature of Stan's crimes hides something darker. Stan didn't just con people. He hurt them. Not physically, perhaps, but financially. Some people saved money specifically to visit attractions, like the Mystery Shack. Stan took that money in exchange for lies. How many families did Stan steal from? How many people left the Mystery Shack feeling cheated, having spent money they couldn't afford on exhibits that were nothing but fabrications? Stan justified it as victimless crime. It's just a tourist trap, he might say. Everyone knows these places exaggerate. But fraud is fraud. Theft is theft. The fact that Stan was charming about it doesn't change the ethical reality. And Stan's criminal history went beyond the Mystery Shack. He'd been banned from several states. He'd operated under dozens of false names. He'd run scams that were illegal enough to warrant law enforcement attention. What were these scams? The show doesn't detail them, but we can infer they were serious. You don't get banned from entire states for minor infractions. Stan must have done something significant, something harmful enough that authorities across multiple jurisdictions wanted him gone. There's a darkness to Stan that the show treats lightly because we like him as a character. But objectively, Stan spent decades hurting people for profit. The fact that he did it to fund his portal research, his quest to save Ford, doesn't erase the harm he caused. The portal's danger. The portal in the Mystery Shack's basement was one of the most dangerous devices ever constructed. It punched a hole through dimensions, weakened reality's fabric, and created the rift that would eventually allow Bill Cipher to invade. Stan ran this portal from his basement for 30 years. For 3 decades, a device capable of destroying reality was active beneath a tourist attraction in a small town. Think about the implications. If the portal had malfunctioned catastrophically at any point during those 30 years, it could have destroyed Gravity Falls, possibly the entire region, potentially much more. Stan was operating this device with incomplete understanding. He wasn't a trained physicist. He was a high school dropout who taught himself from Ford's notes. He made countless mistakes during the reconstruction process. Mistakes that could have been fatal not just for him, but for everyone in Gravity Falls. Every time Stan powered up the portal, he risked everything, and he did it in secret, without consulting anyone, without any oversight or safety protocols. If something had gone wrong, no one would have known how to stop it. No one even knew it existed. The portal also leaked radiation or energy of some kind. The Mystery Shack was built over this portal. Stan lived above it. Suze worked there. Dipper and Mabel stayed there. Everyone was potentially exposed to whatever emissions the portal produced. We don't know the long-term health effects of prolonged exposure to interdimensional portal radiation. Stan might have been slowly poisoning himself and everyone around him for 30 years, and we'd never know until decades later when the cancers or mutations or dimensional instabilities started appearing. Stan's quest to save his brother was noble, but the method was reckless to the point of criminality. He endangered an entire town, possibly an entire dimension, because he couldn't let go of his guilt and couldn't ask for help. The shapeshifter. In the bunker beneath the Mystery Shack, a bunker Ford built, but Stan apparently never discovered, there's a shapeshifter, a creature capable of perfectly mimicking any form, stored in a cryogenic tube. The shapeshifter's very existence raises disturbing questions. Where did it come from? How did Ford capture it? What did Ford do to it before freezing it? The shapeshifter is clearly intelligent, capable of speech and complex thought. Keeping an intelligent being frozen indefinitely is essentially torture. The creature is conscious in its frozen state, aware but unable to move or act, trapped in a nightmare of eternal immobility. Ford did this. The brilliant scientists we're supposed to admire trapped a sentient being in frozen agony and left it there, possibly for decades. Why? What was Ford's plan? Was he studying it? Did he intend to eventually free it? Or was the freezing meant to be permanent, a prison sentence with no end? And what about the shapeshifter's victims? The creature mentions taking forms, implies it's hurt people before. How many people did it kill or replace before Ford caught it? Are there people missing in Gravity Falls who were actually killed by the shapeshifter, their bodies never found, their deaths never acknowledged? When Dipper and Mabel encounter the shapeshifter, it tries to manipulate them, tries to escape. It's desperate, willing to do anything to be free. Can we blame it? After years or decades frozen in darkness, wouldn't anyone become desperate? The shapeshifter is eventually refrozen, trapped again in its nightmare prison. The show treats this as a victory, a dangerous creature successfully contained. But it's also the continuation of torture, the imprisonment of a sapient being without trial or hope of release. This is one of Ford's darkest secrets, that he's capable of cruelty when he deems it necessary, that his pursuit of knowledge and safety can override ethical considerations about the rights and suffering of intelligent beings. The failed experiments. Throughout the Mystery Shack and Ford's labs, there are hints of experiments that went wrong, failed attempts to understand or control weirdness that had consequences. In the basement, there are containment chambers. What was contained in them? Where did those creatures go? Were they released, escaped, or did something worse happen to them? Ford's journals contain descriptions of experiments that seem to have injured or killed the subjects. He writes clinically about failures, about unexpected results, about the need to terminate experiments that became too dangerous. The word terminate is doing a lot of work there. Did Ford kill creatures he'd been experimenting on? Did he kill them because they were dangerous, or because the experiments made them dangerous? There's a fine line between scientist and monster, between research and torture. Ford crossed that line repeatedly during his years of isolation in Gravity Falls, and the show barely addresses it. We see Ford as a hero, as someone who tried to protect the world from Bill Cipher. But before Bill betrayed him, Ford was conducting experiments that would make modern ethics boards recoil in horror. He was capturing sapient beings, studying them without consent, keeping them in captivity, and terminating them when they became inconvenient. The Mystery Shack isn't just built over a portal. It's built over a laboratory where ethical violations occurred regularly, where beings suffered in the name of research, where Ford's obsession with understanding weirdness overrode his compassion for the weird creatures he was studying. Seuss's neglected childhood. Jesus, Seuss Ramirez works at the Mystery Shack. He's portrayed as cheerful, loyal, endlessly patient with Stan's exploitation. But Seuss's backstory is deeply sad. His father abandoned him when he was young, promising to send postcards, but never doing so. Seuss waited for years, hoping his father would reach out, trying to maintain a connection to someone who clearly didn't care about him. Seuss's grandmother raised him, but she was elderly and not entirely equipped to handle an energetic child. Seuss grew up with minimal supervision, minimal guidance, minimal emotional support. Stan hired Seuss when he was still a child. 12 years old, according to some accounts. Stan employed a child, paid him probably below minimum wage, and treated him as free labor for years. This is child labor. This is exploitation. Suze needed the money. His family was poor, so he accepted it. But Stan took advantage of a vulnerable child, and the show treats this lightly because Suze seems happy. But is Suze happy? Or has he learned to accept crumbs of affection because that's all he's ever gotten? Stan is probably the closest thing to a father figure Suze has ever had. But Stan also exploits him, underpays him, mocks him, and takes him for granted. Suze's cheerful demeanor might be a coping mechanism, a way to make the best of a difficult situation. His loyalty to Stan might be less about genuine affection and more about desperate attachment to the only person who's ever showed him any attention at all. When Suze's father finally appears in the show, it's briefly and unsatisfyingly. The reunion Suze dreamed of never really happens. His father is disappointing, showing up only when convenient for him, not out of genuine desire to reconnect with his son. Suze's story is one of abandonment, exploitation, and the normalization of neglect. He's learned to expect nothing and be grateful for anything. And the show rarely acknowledges how sad this is, how much Suze has suffered, how much he continues to endure. Wendy's family situation. Wendy Corduroy seems like a typical teenager, cool, relaxed, working a summer job. But her home life is far from ideal. Wendy's mother is dead. The show never explains how she died, but the absence is significant. Wendy grew up without a mother, raised by her father, and surrounded by brothers. Manly Dan, her father, is portrayed as a caricature, hyper-masculine, aggressive, prone to violence. He solves problems by punching them. His idea of parenting involves roughhousing and intimidation. This is played for laughs, but imagine actually growing up in that household. Imagine being Wendy, the only girl, with a father who doesn't know how to express emotions without violence, and brothers who follow his example. Wendy had to become tough to survive her family. Her cool demeanor isn't natural. It's armor, developed to protect herself from a home environment that's chaotic and emotionally unavailable. She works at the Mystery Shack, partly for money, but probably also to escape her house. The shack, for all its weirdness, is likely calmer and more stable than her home life. Wendy's dead mother is never discussed. How did she die? When? Was it traumatic? How did it affect Wendy and her family? These questions are never answered, the grief never processed on screen. Wendy carries this loss silently, never complaining, never asking for support. She's learned that showing vulnerability is dangerous, that emotions are weaknesses to be hidden. Her relationship with Dipper becomes complicated in this context. Dipper offers her something she's never had, someone who listens to her, who cares about her feelings, who treats her as more than just one of the guys. But she can't accept it, because accepting emotional intimacy would mean lowering her armor, and she's not sure she can survive without that protection. Wendy's story is about loss and adaptation, and the emotional costs of growing up in a household that doesn't make space for grief or gentleness, and it's mostly hidden, treated as background detail rather than the tragedy it actually is. The Mystery Shack as a trap. The Mystery Shack attracts tourists, draws them in with promises of weirdness and wonder, but it also traps them, literally in some cases. The shack has been modified over the years with various trapdoors, hidden passages, and security systems. Stan installed these to protect his secrets, but they also make the building dangerous. Tourists wandering into restricted areas could fall through trapdoors, get lost in hidden passages, trigger security systems, designed to deter intruders. The shack is a lawsuit waiting to happen, a series of hazards disguised as a family-friendly attraction. But the shack traps people in metaphorical ways too. It draws people to Gravity Falls, exposes them to weirdness, changes them. People who visit the Mystery Shack don't leave unchanged. They've seen things, experienced things, been exposed to ideas that will haunt them. Stan doesn't care about this. He cares about profit, about keeping the portal funded, about maintaining his cover. If tourists leave confused or disturbed or fundamentally altered by their experience, that's not his problem. The Mystery Shack is a trap disguised as entertainment, and everyone who visits it falls in, whether they realize it or not. The gnome's true nature. The gnomes of Gravity Falls appear comical, little bearded men who can stack together to form larger shapes. But look closer at their behavior, and something darker emerges. The gnomes attempted to kidnap Mabel, to force her into marriage, to make her their queen against her will. This isn't just rude or pushy. This is attempted kidnapping and forced marriage of a 12-year-old child. Jeff, the leader, didn't accept Mabel's refusal. He became aggressive, enlisted hundreds of other gnomes to chase her, tried to physically drag her back to their lair. Only Dipper's intervention stopped what was essentially an attempted abduction. The show plays this for laughs, but imagine how terrifying it would actually be. Hundreds of small creatures chasing you through the forest, trying to force you into marriage, not accepting your refusal, becoming violent when you resist. And this is apparently normal gnome behavior. They've done this before, likely will do it again. They kidnap women to be their queen, keep them until they die or escape, then kidnap another. It's a cycle of abduction and imprisonment. Where are the previous queens? Did they escape? Did they die in captivity? Are there bodies in the forest? Women who were kidnapped by gnomes and never made it home. The gnomes also show a disturbing level of organization. Hundreds of them coordinate perfectly, forming into giant gnome shapes, working together with clear hierarchy and communication. This suggests intelligence and social structure far beyond what we initially see. They're not cute forest creatures. They're an organized society with a culture that includes kidnapping and forced marriage. They're dangerous, and they're everywhere in the Gravity Falls forest. Why doesn't anyone do anything about them? Probably because, like most weirdness in Gravity Falls, people have learned to just accept it. Don't go into the forest alone. Don't trust small, bearded men. Just survive, and don't think too hard about the implications. The hide behind. The hide behind is one of Gravity Falls' most disturbing creatures, precisely because we barely see it. It's always behind you, always just out of sight, always there, watching, following. Imagine living with the knowledge that such a creature exists, that no matter how quickly you turn around, it will always move faster, always stay behind you, always remain invisible while being absolutely present. What does it want? What does it do? The journal entries suggest it's dangerous, but we never see it attack anyone. Does it just watch? Or does it do something worse when no one's looking? People have disappeared in Gravity Falls forest. Could the hide behind be responsible? If it's always behind you, it could follow you for hours, days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. You'd never see it coming. You'd just vanish. The hide behind represents paranoia made real. The feeling that you're being watched, that something's behind you, that feeling is usually dismissed as anxiety. But in Gravity Falls, it's real. Something is behind you. You're not being paranoid. How do you live with that knowledge? How do you function knowing that invisibility and pursuit are literally stalking you? The residents of Gravity Falls have adapted, but at what psychological cost? The Manitors. The Manitors are aggressive, minotaur-like creatures living in the forest. They worship masculinity in its most toxic form: violence, dominance, the suppression of emotion. When Dipper encounters them, they put him through trials designed to make him manly. These trials involve violence, eating questionable substances, and rejecting anything deemed feminine or weak. This is toxic masculinity distilled into supernatural form, and it's presented as a trial Dipper must pass, as if these values are legitimate measures of worth. The Manitors hurt each other constantly. They fight, they compete, they prove dominance through pain. This is their culture, their way of life, and they're teaching it to anyone who encounters them, spreading these toxic values like a disease. They also show concerning attitudes toward women. When they discover Mabel helped Dipper, they're outraged. Women, in their worldview, are inferior, not worthy of respect. Mabel's assistance makes Dipper's victory invalid because it involved a female. The Manitors represent a dark aspect of masculinity that society struggles with, and they live in Gravity Falls, teaching their toxic values to anyone desperate enough to seek their approval. How many young boys have encountered the Manitors over the years? How many have internalized these values, brought them back to town, spread them to peers? The Manitors' influence might extend far beyond their forest territory, poisoning the culture of Gravity Falls in subtle ways. Probabilitor, the wizard. Probabilitor, the annoying, appears briefly, challenging Dipper to a battle. He seems like a minor villain, easily defeated. But consider what he represents: a wizard who has existed for potentially centuries, who challenges people to games, who has the power to enforce his will through magic. How many people has Probabilitor challenged over the years? How many have lost? And what happened to them? Probabilitor doesn't kill his opponents. That would be too simple. He takes something from them. In Dipper's case, he wanted to take Dipper's brain. Imagine having your brain removed, kept in a jar, while your body continues existing without you. An eternal prison of consciousness, without form. How many brains does Probabilitor have in his collection? How many minds are trapped, aware but helpless, stored in his lair? The show doesn't answer this question, but the implications are horrifying. Probabilitor also represents the danger of making deals or accepting challenges in Gravity Falls. Seemingly innocent games can have devastating consequences. The wizard might seem annoying rather than threatening, but he's actually one of the most dangerous entities in the series. Someone who can permanently imprison your consciousness with your consent gained through a game. The shapeshifter's victims. We discussed the shapeshifter earlier as a prisoner, but let's talk about what it did before imprisonment. The shapeshifter killed people. It had to, in order to take their forms convincingly. To perfectly mimic someone, the shapeshifter needs to study them extensively. It needs to know their mannerisms, their speech patterns, their memories. The most efficient way to gain this knowledge is to keep the original alive for observation. Imagine being captured by the shapeshifter. It keeps you alive, studies you, learns everything about you. It practices being you, in front of you, mimicking your voice, your movements, your personality. And then when it's perfect, when it can fool your loved ones. It kills you, takes your place, and no one knows. How many people in Gravity Falls have been replaced by the shapeshifter? How many families have shapeshifter replacements living among them, wearing the faces of their loved ones? Ford caught the shapeshifter eventually. But how many victims came before? And when the shapeshifter escapes briefly and encounters Dipper and Mabel, it's desperately trying to take their forms. If it had succeeded, it would have killed them and taken their places. The shapeshifter is one of Gravity Falls' most purely evil creatures, intelligent, malicious, willing to kill without remorse to achieve its goals. And it's still alive, frozen but not dead, waiting for another chance to escape and resume its work. The Gremloblin. The Gremloblin is a creature that shows you your worst nightmares when you look into its eyes. It weaponizes your own fears against you, paralyzing you with visions of what you dread most. This is psychological torture. The Gremloblin doesn't just scare you, it reaches into your mind, finds your deepest fears, and makes you experience them. The trauma from such an encounter could last a lifetime. What nightmares did the Gremloblin show to people before the events of the show? How many people in Gravity Falls have been psychologically scarred by looking into its eyes? And where did the Gremloblin come from? Is it natural, or was it created? If created, who would make such a thing? What purpose does a creature that weaponizes nightmares serve, except to cause suffering? The Gremloblin is eventually captured and stored, presumably by the government agents studying Gravity Falls. But storage isn't destruction. It's still out there, still alive, still capable of inflicting psychological torture on anyone who looks into its eyes. Time Baby and the Time Paradox. Police. Time Baby rules the future, commanding a police force that monitors and corrects time paradoxes. This sounds orderly, even benevolent, but consider the implications. Time Baby has the power to erase timelines, to eliminate realities that don't conform to his desired outcome. He's essentially a dictator who controls not just space, but time itself. The Time Paradox. Police enforce his will across all of history. They show up to correct problems, which usually means eliminating people or events that threaten the timeline. They're essentially time assassins, removing problems by erasing them from existence. Blendin Blandin, the time traveler we meet, is just a janitor in this organization. He's at the bottom of the hierarchy, yet even he has access to time travel technology and the authority to alter events. How many times has the timeline been altered? How many versions of reality have been erased to maintain Time Baby's preferred outcome? Are we living in the correct timeline, or just the one Time Baby allows to exist? And Time Baby himself is disturbing. A giant baby with ultimate power, the combination of infantile impulsiveness with godlike capability. His whims can erase entire timelines. His tantrums can unmake reality. During Weirdmageddon, Bill Cipher destroys Time Baby. This seems like a victory for chaos over order, but it also means the timeline is now unprotected. Without Time Baby and his police, paradoxes could unravel reality. The fact that reality continues suggests either Time Baby was unnecessary, or some other force has taken over his role. Either way, the existence of time police watching and correcting history suggests we have less free will than we think. Our choices might be monitored, our futures predetermined, our timeline carefully maintained by forces we can't see or resist. Ford's obsession and isolation Stanford Pines is presented as a hero, the brilliant scientist who tried to stop Bill Cipher, who spent 30 years in the multiverse, who ultimately helped save the world. But Ford's brilliance came with a dark side. His obsession with understanding weirdness led him to isolate himself completely. He pushed away his family, his friend Fiddleford, anyone who might have helped him or provided emotional support. This isolation wasn't just sad, it was dangerous. Alone in his cabin, Ford became paranoid, erratic, vulnerable to manipulation. Bill Cipher found him precisely because he was alone, because he was desperate for connection. Ford's journals reveal a mind increasingly unhinged. The handwriting becomes erratic. The observations become stranger. There are hints of sleepless nights, of mental deterioration, of a brilliant mind eating itself in isolation. Ford also showed signs of narcissism. He believed he was special, that his 6 fingers marked him as superior. He dismissed others' concerns as ignorance. He trusted his own judgment above everyone else's, even when that judgment was clearly failing. When Fiddleford begged him to stop the portal research, Ford ignored him. When his own observations suggested Bill might be dangerous, Ford rationalized them away. His need to be right, to prove his genius, overrode his common sense and compassion. Ford's 30 years in the multiverse likely made this worse. He survived by trusting no one, by being paranoid, by assuming everyone was a threat. These were necessary survival skills in hostile dimensions, but they made him unable to function in normal society. When Ford returned to Gravity Falls, he couldn't reconnect with his family. He treated Stan with contempt, dismissed his accomplishments, showed no gratitude for the 30 years Stan spent trying to save him. He tried to separate Dipper and Mabel, offering Dipper an apprenticeship that would break up the twins. Ford's actions, while understandable, were often selfish and harmful. He hurt people in pursuit of knowledge. He prioritized his work over relationships. He let his brilliance excuse his cruelty. The show eventually redeems Ford, has him realize the importance of family, but that redemption doesn't erase the decades of isolation, obsession, and emotional damage he inflicted on himself and others. Mabel's selfishness. Mabel is portrayed as the heart of the show, optimistic, creative, loving. But there's a darker reading of her character, one the show touches on, but doesn't fully explore. Mabel is deeply selfish. Most of her schemes and projects are about what she wants, with little consideration for how they affect others. She pursues boys aggressively, creates chaos in her wake, and expects others to clean up her messes. Her relationship with Dipper is particularly problematic. She relies on him emotionally, but doesn't always reciprocate. When Dipper needs support, Mabel often makes it about herself. When Dipper has opportunities that might separate them, Mabel sabotages them rather than being happy for him. The apprenticeship incident is telling. Ford offers Dipper a chance to study the weird, to become a researcher, to pursue his passion. This is a huge opportunity for Dipper, but it would mean staying in Gravity Falls while Mabel returns to California. Mabel's reaction isn't happiness for her brother. It's fear and anger about being separated. She makes Dipper's opportunity about her own abandonment issues. And ultimately, she makes a deal with Bill that destroys reality. Partly because she can't face the idea of growing up and growing apart from Dipper. Mabel's decision to give Bill the rift wasn't just manipulation by Bill. It was Mabel choosing her own comfort over literally everything else. She was told the rift was dangerous. She was told to protect it. But when offered an escape from her problems, she handed it over without really thinking about the consequences. This led directly to Weirdmageddon, Bill's invasion, the transformation of Gravity Falls' residents, the near destruction of reality. All of it traces back to Mabel's choice. And while Bill manipulated her, Mabel still made the choice. She was willing to risk everything rather than face change. The show eventually addresses this. Mabel takes responsibility, helps fix what she broke. But there's a pattern in her character of putting her own emotional needs above others' safety and well-being. Mabel's selfishness is usually portrayed as childish innocence rather than a character flaw. But innocence doesn't excuse harm. Mabel hurt people, endangered the world, and expected forgiveness because she meant well. Dipper's obsessiveness. Dipper is portrayed as smart, resourceful, heroic, but he also shows troubling patterns of obsessive behavior. His pursuit of the author's identity becomes all-consuming. He neglects his relationships, puts himself in danger, and makes increasingly reckless decisions, all to solve a mystery that ultimately didn't need solving as urgently as he thought. Dipper's obsession with Wendy is particularly problematic. He's 12, she's 15, an age gap that's significant at that stage of development. But Dipper pursues her romantically, despite her clear signals that she sees him as a friend. He creates elaborate schemes to impress her, to be near her, to make her notice him. These schemes often put others in danger or create uncomfortable situations. Dipper's crush makes him manipulative, willing to use situations and people to get closer to Wendy. When Wendy gently rejects him, explaining the age gap, Dipper accepts it maturely. But before that, his behavior bordered on stalking. He followed her, watched her, obsessed over her in ways that would be concerning if the genders were reversed. Dipper also shows his great-uncle Ford's tendency toward isolation and obsession. He's willing to give up his friendship with Mabel, his summer, everything, to pursue knowledge or recognition. Like Ford, Dipper's brilliance could lead him to loneliness if he's not careful. There's a darkness in Dipper's character, a willingness to sacrifice relationships for achievement, to obsess over goals until they consume him, to prioritize being special over being happy. The show addresses this through Dipper's growth. He learns to value Mabel, to accept his age, to balance his curiosity with his relationships. But the potential for darker paths is always there, a shadow of what Dipper could become if he let his obsessions control him. Grunkle Stan's lies. Stan lied to everyone for 30 years. He pretended to be his brother, faked his own death, operated a portal that could destroy the world, and told no one. These weren't white lies or harmless deceptions. These were fundamental lies about identity and reality. Everyone who knew Stanford Pines in Gravity Falls was actually knowing Stanley, pretending to be Stanford. How many relationships were built on this lie? How many people thought they knew Stan when they actually knew a character he was playing? When the truth came out, how many of those relationships survived? Stan also lied to Dipper and Mabel throughout their summer. He pretended the weirdness wasn't real, that the Mystery Shack exhibits were the only oddities in Gravity Falls. He knew the town was genuinely strange, but hid this from his grandniece and nephew, putting them in danger through ignorance. If Dipper hadn't found the journal, if the kids hadn't figured out the truth themselves, they would have been completely unprepared for the dangers of gravity falls. Stan's lies could have gotten them killed. Stan also stole years from his brother. Ford asked Stan to hide the journals and forget about him. Instead, Stan spent 30 years trying to bring Ford back, which created the rift, which allowed Weirdmageddon. Stan's inability to let go, disguised as loyalty, nearly destroyed the world. The show redeems Stan by having him sacrifice his memory to stop Bill. But that sacrifice doesn't erase the decades of lies, the people he hurt, the dangers he created through deception. Stan is lovable as a character, but objectively, he's a liar and criminal who endangered countless lives in pursuit of personal redemption. His good intentions don't change the harm he caused. Pacifica's abuse. Pacifica Northwest seems like a typical mean girl, rich, spoiled, cruel to those she considers beneath her. But her behavior isn't just snobbery. It's the result of systematic emotional abuse. Pacifica's parents use a bell to control her, conditioning her like Pavlov's dogs. When they ring the bell, Pacifica obeys without question, overriding her own will and desires. This is abuse, the creation of conditioned responses that eliminate autonomy. How long has this been going on? Since childhood, presumably. Pacifica has been trained her entire life to obey the bell, to suppress her own wishes, to be whatever her parents want her to be. Her parents also subject her to constant criticism and pressure. Nothing she does is good enough. Her value as a person is tied to her performance, her appearance, her maintenance of the Northwest family reputation. Pacifica's cruelty to others is learned behavior. She's cruel because her parents are cruel to her, and she's learned that power and status are maintained through dominance and humiliation. The show gives Pacifica a redemption arc, has her stand up to her parents and become a better person. But the abuse she suffered is never fully addressed. Her parents face no consequences. The bell conditioning continues. Pacifica returns to an abusive home every night. Whatever growth she experiences, whatever kindness she shows, is undermined by the ongoing psychological torture she endures from her parents. The show treats this lightly because it's a children's program. But imagine actually living Pacifica's life. Imagine being conditioned to obey a bell, being constantly criticized, having your worth tied to, maintaining an image rather than being yourself. Pacifica's story is one of child abuse, and it's mostly hidden behind her wealth and her mean girl persona. People see her as a privileged brat, not as an abuse victim, and she never gets the help or intervention she needs. Gideon's corruption. Gideon Gleeful is a child villain, which is already disturbing. He's 9 or 10 years old, running a psychic scam, manipulating adults, and showing genuine malice toward anyone who opposes him. How did Gideon become this way? The show suggests his mystic amulet corrupted him, giving him power too young and twisting his personality. But Gideon was vulnerable to that corruption. He was a child seeking power, seeking control, seeking recognition. Something in his life made him desperate enough to use a mystic amulet despite the risks. Gideon's parents are part of the problem. They enable his behavior, allow him to run scams, support his pursuit of Mabel, even when it's clearly unhealthy. They've created a child who believes he can have whatever he wants through manipulation and force. Gideon's obsession with Mabel is particularly disturbing. He's a child, but his pursuit of her shows adult-level possessiveness and willingness to harm others. He tries to kill Dipper, tries to force Mabel into a relationship, becomes violently angry when rejected. This is a child showing patterns that, if left unchecked, will make him a dangerous adult. He needs intervention, therapy, help. Instead, he's sent to prison, where he continues his manipulative behavior on a larger scale. Gideon's story is tragic. He's a child who was given too much power, too young, enabled by parents who should have set boundaries, and corrupted by forces he didn't understand. His villainy is real, but it's also sad, a glimpse of what happens when children are failed by the adults who should protect them. The journal codes. Throughout the journals, there are coded messages. Some use simple substitution ciphers. Others use more complex encoding methods. All of them hide information that's too dark or sensitive to present openly. Why code these messages at all? Because Ford knew his journals might be found. He wanted to hide the darkest information, making it accessible only to those willing to work for it. The coded messages reveal things like Ford's growing paranoia about Bill, his failed experiments and their casualties, his thoughts about suicide during his darkest moments, his guilt about the harm he'd caused. These aren't fun Easter eggs. These are cries for help, hidden because Ford couldn't admit his struggles openly. They're evidence of a mind deteriorating, of a man so isolated he could only communicate his darkest thoughts in code. Some messages are warnings. Trust no one appears repeatedly. Others are confessions, admissions of mistakes, acknowledgments of harm caused. All of them paint a picture darker than the journal's overt content. The fact that these messages are coded suggests Ford knew they were inappropriate, dangerous, or too revealing. He wanted to document them, but also wanted to hide them. The codes are a compromise between honesty and self-protection. The backwards messages. Gravity Falls contains numerous backwards audio messages. Play certain scenes in reverse, and hidden dialogue emerges. These messages are often disturbing. 3 letters back, a clue to one of the ciphers. Switch A to Z, another cipher clue. Whispers that suggest dark futures. Warnings about Bill's cipher. Why hide messages this way? Because they're too dark for the overt content of a children's show. Backwards messages require deliberate effort to find. You have to record the show, reverse the audio, and listen carefully. This creates plausible deniability. The messages exist, but they're not obvious. Children watching won't hear them. Only dedicated fans, often adults, will discover them. Some backwards messages are playful. Others are genuinely unsettling, hinting at darker plots or future dangers. They create an atmosphere of hidden darkness, suggesting that even the audio itself can't be trusted, that secrets lurk in every aspect of the show. The end credits, codes. Every episode's end credits contain a coded message. These messages form an ongoing narrative, revealing information not present in the episodes themselves. Some end credits messages are straightforward. Stan is not what he seems. Sorry, Dipper, but your Wendy is in another castle. Others are more cryptic, hinting at plots and secrets that won't be revealed for seasons. The end credits codes create an alternative narrative track, a story beneath the story. They reward attentive viewers while hiding information from casual watchers. But they also create paranoia. If the end credits can't be trusted to just be credits, what else in the show is secretly communicating? Are there codes in the background art? In the dialogue? In the musical cues? Gravity Falls trains its viewers to be paranoid, to assume everything might be a code or clue. This mirrors the experience of living in Gravity Falls itself, a place where nothing is quite what it seems, where the surface reality hides deeper, darker truths. The symbols and glyphs. Throughout Gravity Falls, strange symbols appear. Some are simple decorations, others are magical glyphs, each with specific meaning and power. The zodiac wheel is the most significant, a circle of symbols representing the main characters, used in a ritual to defeat Bill Cipher. But there are other symbols scattered throughout the show, whose meanings are never fully explained. Some symbols appear to be protective wards. Others might be summoning circles. Some could be dimensional markers, indicating places where reality is thin. Ford's journals contain extensive notes on various symbols, but even these notes are incomplete. Ford didn't understand all the symbols he encountered. Some predated his arrival in Gravity Falls, left by previous researchers or inhabitants. The symbols create a visual language of hidden knowledge. They suggest that Gravity Falls has layers of meaning beyond what's spoken, that the initiated can communicate through signs and glyphs invisible to ordinary people. This creates a world where literacy isn't enough. You need to understand the symbolic language, the hidden codes, the secret meanings. You need to see past the surface to the deeper truths encoded in symbols. Bill's hidden appearances. Before Bill Cipher is introduced as a character, he appears in hidden ways throughout the show. His triangular form shows up in background art, in patterns, in shadows. These hidden bills create a sense that he's always been there, always watching, waiting for his moment. Even before the characters know about him, Bill is present, influencing events from the background. Some of these appearances are subtle, triangles in background art that could be coincidence. Others are more overt, Bill's eye appearing in places it shouldn't be, watching key moments. This creates retroactive paranoia. Once you know about Bill, you can go back and see him everywhere. He's been there all along, present in scenes you thought were safe, watching moments you thought were private. Bill's hidden appearances suggest his influence extends beyond his direct actions. He's not just a character who appears in specific episodes. He's a presence woven into the fabric of the show itself, as inescapable as gravity. The author's hidden identity. For the first 2 seasons, the author of the journals is a mystery. Clues are scattered throughout, hidden in codes and background details. But the author's identity isn't just a puzzle. It's a revelation about the show's structure. The author is Stanford Pines, Stan's twin brother, someone who's been absent from the show, but present in its foundations. This revelation recontextualizes everything. The Mystery Shack was built over Ford's lab. Stan's entire life has been shaped by Ford's choices. The weirdness of Gravity Falls has been studied and documented by Ford. Ford's hidden presence creates a ghost story, a character who isn't there, but whose influence is everywhere. Every weird creature, every anomaly, every entry in the journals comes from Ford's research. The mystery of Ford's identity also creates family drama. Stan has been lying about being Stanford for 30 years. The brothers' relationship, fractured in youth, has been central to the plot, even when only one brother was visible. Ford's hidden identity is one of the show's central secrets, but it's also a misdirection. We spend time trying to figure out who the author is, when the real question is why Stan is pretending to be his brother. The mystery hides a deeper truth about family, regret, and the links people will go to fix their mistakes. The transformation of citizens. During Weirdmageddon, Bill Cipher transformed Gravity Falls residents into furniture, banners, and decorations. They were conscious during this transformation, aware but unable to move or speak, trapped in bodies that were no longer human. This is torture, being conscious but unable to move, unable to communicate, feeling yourself transformed into an object. This is a nightmare made real. The transformations lasted for days. People spent days trapped in their new forms, aware of what had happened to them, unable to do anything about it. The psychological trauma from this experience would be profound and lasting. When Weirdmageddon ended, people transformed back, but the memory of the transformation remained. They remember what it felt like to be a chair, a banner, a statue. They remember the helplessness, the horror, the complete loss of agency. How do you recover from an experience like that? How do you go back to normal life after being literally transformed into furniture? The show doesn't really address this. Gravity Falls rebuilds, people move on, life continues. But realistically, the entire town would need extensive trauma counseling. Many residents would develop PTSD, anxiety disorders, depression. Some might never recover psychologically from the experience. Children who were transformed would be particularly affected. Their developing minds experience something that should be impossible, something that violated every rule of reality they'd learned. This kind of trauma in childhood can have lifelong effects. And what about the people who weren't transformed but witnessed it? Those who hid in the Mystery Shack and watched their neighbors, friends, family members being changed into objects. That secondary trauma, watching people you love suffer and being unable to help, can be just as damaging. The pyramid's interior. Inside Bill's pyramid, reality operated on dream logic. The henchmaniacs threw an eternal party, playing games with physics and causality, creating and destroying things on whim. But they didn't party alone. They had victims, people captured and brought into the pyramid for entertainment. What happened to these people? We see some of them briefly, transformed, tortured, used as toys in the henchmaniacs' games, but we don't see all of them, and we don't know the full extent of what was done to them. The pyramid existed for days. The henchmaniacs are creatures of chaos who have existed for potentially billions of years. They've had eons to develop creative forms of torture and entertainment. What did they do to their victims in those days inside the pyramid? The show can't depict it. It's a children's program, but the implications are horrifying. Some victims might have been killed. Others might have been transformed so extensively they couldn't be changed back. Some might have been driven mad by what they experienced. When Weirdmageddon ended and the pyramid fell, what happened to the people inside? Did they all make it out? Were they all transformed back to normal? Or are there still victims? Somewhere, lost in the wreckage, transformed beyond recognition or rescue. The memory of the sky. During Weirdmageddon, the sky turned red and black. Impossible colors bled through from the nightmare realm. Reality itself looked wrong. Everyone in Gravity Falls saw this. Children looked up and saw the sky broken, saw colors that shouldn't exist, saw reality itself malfunctioning. This image, the broken sky, would haunt Gravity Falls residents forever. Every time they look up, they'll remember. Every beautiful sunset will carry the shadow of that red and black sky. Every night will remind them of when the stars disappeared and were replaced with chaos. You can't unsee something like that. You can't forget the moment when reality broke and the sky proved it wasn't as stable as you thought. Children who experienced Weirdmageddon will grow up with this memory. They'll tell their children about it someday. About the summer the sky turned red and demons walked the streets. But will their children believe them? Will anyone outside Gravity Falls believe what happened? This creates a shared trauma that isolates Gravity Falls from the rest of the world. Everyone who wasn't there can't truly understand what happened. Everyone who was there is forever changed by the experience. The broken sky is a collective memory that binds Gravity Falls together, but also separates it from everyone else. It's a scar on the town's psyche, visible every time someone looks up. Bill's lasting influence. Bill Cipher was erased from Stanley's mind, but he wasn't erased from everyone's mind. Everyone else in Gravity Falls remembers him, remembers what he did, remembers his voice and his laugh and his single eye. Bill exists in memory, and memory has power, especially in a place like Gravity Falls, where thought and reality are more connected than elsewhere. Do the residents dream of Bill? When they close their eyes, do they see that yellow triangle? Hear that high-pitched laugh? Are they haunted by the memory of the demon who broke their world? Bill's influence might persist in other ways too. He spent billions of years studying minds, manipulating reality, understanding how to twist thoughts and desires. That knowledge doesn't just disappear because Bill was erased. The deals Bill made before Weirdmageddon might still be active. The changes he made to reality might not have fully reverted. The cracks he created in dimensional barriers might still exist. Weakened points where reality is thinner than it should be. Bill claimed in his final moments to invoke the axolotl for a chance to return. Did that invocation work? Is Bill somehow reconstituting in some other form, some other dimension, waiting for another chance? The residents of Gravity Falls can't know for certain that Bill is truly gone. They can only hope. And that uncertainty, that fear that the demon might return, is itself a form of ongoing trauma. The children who survived. Dipper and Mabel survived Weirdmageddon, but they were changed by it. They saw things no 12-year-old should see. They made choices with cosmic consequences. They grew up faster than they should have had to. Dipper nearly died multiple times. He fought demons, faced his own death, made plans that required people he loved to sacrifice themselves. That's not normal childhood experience. That's soldier-level trauma. Mabel's guilt about giving Bill the rift will stay with her forever. She knows she caused Weirdmageddon, even if Bill manipulated her into it. That knowledge, that responsibility, is a heavy burden for anyone, let alone a child. They both saw people transformed, hurt, nearly killed. They saw their great-uncle sacrifice his identity to save the world. They participated in cosmic battles that should have been far beyond them. How do you go back to normal school after that? How do you care about homework and social drama when you've literally saved the world from an interdimensional demon? Dipper and Mabel will carry Gravity Falls with them forever. It will shape who they become, how they see the world, what they believe is possible. They'll never be normal again in a fundamental sense, and they can't really talk about it. Who would believe them? Their parents don't know what happened. Their friends back home didn't experience it. Dipper and Mabel are isolated by their experiences, able to truly relate only to each other, and to the people they met in Gravity Falls. This is the cost of being a child hero. You save the world, but you lose your innocence. You gain knowledge and power, but you lose the ability to see the world as safe and stable. Dipper and Mabel are survivors, but survival comes with scars. The government cover-up. After Weirdmageddon, government agents arrived in Gravity Falls. They documented the damage, interviewed witnesses, collected samples, and then they covered it up. The official story is that Weirdmageddon didn't happen. Or if it did happen, it was some kind of mass hallucination, a shared delusion caused by chemicals in the water or mass hysteria. The government can't acknowledge that dimensional demons invaded a small Oregon town. That would raise too many questions, threaten too many assumptions about reality, create too much panic, so they lie. They dismiss witness testimony. They confiscate evidence. They create alternative explanations that sound reasonable to people who weren't there. This is gaslighting on a massive scale. The residents of Gravity Falls know what they experienced, but the official record says it didn't happen. They're told their memories are false, their trauma is imaginary, their experiences are impossible. Some residents accept the cover story. It's easier to believe the official explanation than to live with the knowledge that reality broke. Others resist, insisting on the truth, but they're dismissed as conspiracy theorists or victims of mass delusion. The cover-up creates a rift between Gravity Falls and the outside world. Gravity Falls knows the truth. Everyone else believes the lie. And there's no way to bridge that gap, no way to make outsiders understand without sounding insane. The government's cover-up also has strategic purposes. They want to study Gravity Falls, to understand what happened, to potentially weaponize or exploit the dimensional weakness. They can't do that if the public is demanding intervention or evacuation. So Gravity Falls remains open, inhabited, appearing normal to outsiders, while residents live with the knowledge that their town is marked, special, dangerous. They live in a place the government has decided is expendable, a sacrifice zone where dimensional boundaries are weak and invasions might happen again. The multiverse of Suffering Ford spent 30 years traveling the multiverse. He visited countless dimensions, saw infinite variations of reality, experienced things no human was meant to experience. But most of what Ford saw was horrible. The multiverse isn't full of wonderful, interesting places. It's full of nightmares, dimensions where life never evolved, dimensions ruled by tyrants worse than Bill, dimensions in the process of collapsing, dimensions where suffering is the fundamental nature of existence. Ford rarely talks about what he saw, but the few glimpses we get are disturbing. He mentions dimensions where he had to fight to survive, where trust was fatal, where every being he met wanted to use or hurt him. 30 years in that environment changed Ford. He became paranoid, ruthless, willing to do terrible things to survive. The multiverse stripped away his idealism and replaced it with cynicism and fear. But Ford's experiences also reveal a dark truth about reality itself. Our dimension is one of the better ones. Most of existence is worse. We live in a relatively stable, relatively kind dimension, and even here, we have beings like Bill Cipher trying to destroy it. What does it mean that most of reality is horrifying? What does it say about existence itself that the multiverse is overwhelmingly hostile to life and consciousness? Ford's journey suggests that reality isn't inherently good or meaningful. It's random, chaotic, often cruel. We got lucky, to exist in a dimension where life is possible and suffering isn't universal. But that luck is fragile, threatened constantly by forces from worse dimensions. The nature of memory. The memory gun raises profound philosophical questions. If your memories define who you are, what happens when those memories are erased? Are you still you, or have you become someone else? Old Man McGucket used the memory gun on himself dozens of times. Each time, he erased part of who he was. Eventually, he became almost a different person entirely. From brilliant inventor to confused hermit. But McGucket's memories still existed somewhere. When he stopped erasing and began to remember, pieces came back. This suggests memory isn't truly destroyed, just suppressed or hidden. This raises disturbing questions. If memories can be suppressed and recovered, can they be manufactured? Can false memories be implanted? In a world with memory guns, how can you trust your own past? The residents of Gravity Falls who were memory wiped by the Society of the Blind Eye can never be certain their memories are real. They might remember things that never happened, believe in pasts that were created rather than experienced. And what about Stan's erasure and recovery? When his memories came back, were they the same memories? Or were they reconstructed approximations, close to the original, but fundamentally different? Memory makes us who we are, but memory is also fragile, malleable, unreliable. In Gravity Falls, memory can be weaponized, stolen, erased, possibly fabricated. The self becomes uncertain. Identity becomes negotiable. This is existentially terrifying. If you can't trust your memories, you can't trust your identity. You might be someone else wearing the mask of your memories. You might be a fiction, believing yourself real. The Zodiac's failed ritual. The Zodiac wheel represented all the main characters. If they had held hands in the correct formation, they could have performed a ritual to stop Bill Cipher without Stan's sacrifice. But they failed. Personal conflicts and egos got in the way. Stan and Ford couldn't set aside their differences long enough to complete the ritual. This failure meant Stan had to erase himself. It meant Weirdmageddon continued longer. It meant more suffering, more death, more destruction. The Zodiac ritual's failure reveals a dark truth. Humanity's greatest weakness is our inability to cooperate when it matters most. Even facing literal apocalypse, personal grudges and ego prevented the heroes from working together. How many times in human history has this happened? How many catastrophes could have been prevented if people set aside their differences and worked together? How many times has pride or anger or resentment led to outcomes worse than any individual wanted? The Zodiac ritual also suggests predestination. These specific people, in this specific arrangement, could have stopped Bill, but they were never going to succeed. Their personalities, their conflicts, their histories made failure inevitable. Were they doomed from the start? Is free will an illusion when prophecy and personality combine to create predictable outcomes? The Zodiac knew who would be needed, but it couldn't account for human nature. This creates a tragic irony. The tools to stop Bill existed. The knowledge of how to use them existed. But human weakness prevented their use, requiring a much more costly solution. The axolotl's mystery. Bill's final words invoked the axolotl, begging for a return. This raises questions the show never answers. What is the axolotl? Based on references in Gravity Falls supplementary materials, it's a cosmic entity far more powerful than Bill, a being that exists outside normal, dimensional boundaries, the axolotl seems to govern souls and reincarnation, offering second chances to those who invoke it. But these second chances come with conditions, with lessons to be learned, with punishments appropriate to past crimes. Did Bill's invocation work? Is he being reincarnated somewhere, in some form, as some lesser, being forced to learn humility and empathy? Or was Bill's plea ignored, his consciousness truly erased, scattered across dimensional boundaries, with no hope of reformation? The show doesn't answer this, leaving Bill's ultimate fate ambiguous. This ambiguity is itself disturbing because it means we can never be certain he's truly gone. But the axolotl's existence raises bigger questions. If such beings exist, beings far beyond Bill's cipher, in power and knowledge, what are they doing? Why do they allow suffering? Why don't they intervene to prevent catastrophes? The axolotl might offer second chances, but it didn't prevent Weirdmageddon. It didn't stop Bill from destroying the second dimension, or from manipulating Ford, or from causing billions of years of suffering across multiple dimensions. Either the axolotl can't intervene, or it chooses not to. Both possibilities are disturbing. If it can't, then even cosmic entities have limits, and reality is fundamentally without oversight. If it won't, then suffering is either necessary or acceptable to beings that could prevent it. The Pines family curse. Throughout the show, we see the Pines family repeatedly torn apart by conflict, poor communication, and bad choices. Stan and Ford's separation started over a science fair project and was never healed for 40 years. Stan spent 30 years lying about his identity. Ford prioritized knowledge over family. Dipper and Mabel nearly separated over the apprenticeship. Is this just normal family dysfunction? Or is there something more? A pattern, a curse that affects the Pines family specifically? Evidence suggests the latter. Every generation of Pines seems to struggle with separation, with communication, with choosing ambition or fear over connection. It's a repeating pattern that goes beyond coincidence. Perhaps the family carries some kind of generational trauma passed down through behavior and teaching. Or perhaps there's something more supernatural, a literal curse that affects Pines, family members, pushing them toward isolation and conflict. If a curse exists, where did it come from? Did a Pines ancestor make a deal, angering some entity that cursed their bloodline? Is the family marked somehow, targeted by forces that benefit from their separation? The show never confirms a curse, but the pattern is there. The Pines family is brilliant, capable, and perpetually on the edge of destroying itself through internal conflict. Breaking the curse, if it exists, requires exactly what Stan did: choosing family over self, sacrificing personal identity for the greater good. Perhaps that's what every generation of Pines must do, must learn, must choose, but that's a heavy burden. Requiring heroic self-sacrifice to maintain family bonds isn't normal. It suggests something deeply wrong, some weight pressing on the family that normal families don't face. The true cost of weirdness. Gravity Falls celebrates weirdness, treats it as magical and wonderful. But weirdness has a cost. People die because of weirdness. They're transformed, driven mad, lost in the forest, killed by creatures that shouldn't exist. The weirdness that makes Gravity Falls special also makes it deadly. The survivors, those who live in Gravity Falls and accept the weirdness, pay psychological costs. They develop abnormal tolerance for trauma. They learn to dismiss the impossible as normal. They become different from people in ordinary places. This difference isolates them. People from Gravity Falls can never fully integrate into normal society. They've seen too much, experienced too much. They'll always be outsiders, marked by their time in a weird town. Children who grow up in Gravity Falls develop differently than children elsewhere. Their understanding of reality is fundamentally altered. They know magic is real, that physics is negotiable, that impossible things happen. This knowledge is power, but it's also burden. These children will never have the comfort of certainty that children elsewhere enjoy. They'll always know reality is fragile, that safety is illusion, that weird and dangerous things exist. The weirdness also attracts danger. Bill Cipher came to Gravity Falls specifically because of the weirdness. Other entities might do the same. The town is a beacon to things from other dimensions, a weak point in reality's defenses. Living in Gravity Falls means accepting that your town will always be a target, that weird threats will always emerge, that normal life is impossible. The residents trade safety and normalcy for strangeness and danger. Is that trade worth it? The show says yes, celebrates the weirdness, treats it as valuable, but it's easy to celebrate when you're not the one being transformed into furniture, or chased by gnomes, or manipulated by dream demons. The true cost of weirdness is measured in trauma, isolation, and persistent danger. Gravity Falls pays that cost every day and will continue paying it long after the show ends. The author of Journal 1. We know Ford wrote the journals, but Journal 1 is different from the others. It contains information that even Ford seems uncertain about, references to knowledge that predates his arrival in Gravity Falls. Did Ford write all of Journal 1? Or did he find an earlier journal and expand on it? Were there researchers before Ford who documented Gravity Falls' weirdness? The show hints at a history of investigation going back decades or centuries. The bunker existed before Ford. The Society of the Blind Eye predated his arrival. Someone was studying Gravity Falls before Ford got there. Who were these earlier researchers? What happened to them? Did they leave Gravity Falls? Or did the weirdness claim them? Journal 1 might contain their work, their observations, their warnings. Ford might have found their research and incorporated it into his journals, crediting himself with discoveries that were actually made by forgotten predecessors. If earlier researchers existed, their fate is a warning. They came to Gravity Falls seeking knowledge, and they disappeared. Ford nearly suffered the same fate. Only his brother's intervention saved him. The pattern suggests that Gravity Falls consumes researchers. It draws them in with promises of understanding, then traps them, changes them, ultimately destroys them. Ford escaped this fate, but others might not have been so fortunate. The portal's other uses. The portal was designed to connect to the nightmare realm, but a device that can punch through dimensions could theoretically connect to any dimension. Did Stan ever use the portal for other purposes during his 30 years of operation? Did he explore other dimensions? Did he bring anything back? The portal's existence in Stan's basement for 3 decades raises possibilities. It was a doorway to infinite realities, and Stan had exclusive access to it for years before Ford returned. Stan might have used it cautiously, avoiding the nightmare realm while exploring safer dimensions. He might have traded with other dimensional beings, acquired items or knowledge that helped fund his work. Or he might have never used it, except to bring Ford home, too afraid of the consequences to risk any other purpose. we'll never know for certain. Stan's activities during those 30 years remain largely mysterious, but the portal's potential goes far beyond its designed purpose, and Stan had decades to discover that potential. The cipher wheel's origin, the zodiac wheel with symbols representing the main characters, appears throughout Gravity Falls. But where did it come from? Ford drew it in his journal, but he might not have created it. The wheel might be older, a prophetic symbol that Ford discovered and documented. If the wheel predates Ford, it suggests predestination. Someone or something knew these specific people would be needed to stop Bill's cipher. The wheel was prepared in advance, waiting for the right moment, the right people. This raises questions about free will and prophecy. Were Dipper and Mabel always destined to come to Gravity Falls? Was Bill's attempt to invade always going to happen? Were the characters playing out roles assigned to them before they were born? The wheel's existence suggests reality is less chaotic than it appears. There are patterns, prophecies, predetermined roles. The characters feel like they're making choices, but they're actually following a script written long ago. This is comforting in one sense. It means someone or something is paying attention, that events have meaning and purpose. But it's disturbing in another sense. It means free will might be illusion, that we're all acting out predetermined roles without realizing it. The lost episode. There are rumors, never confirmed, of a lost Gravity Falls episode, an episode too dark to air, containing content that couldn't be broadcast on a children's network. This lost episode allegedly shows what happened inside Bill's pyramid in greater detail. It depicts the tortures, the transformations, the games the henchmaniacs played with their victims. Whether this episode exists is uncertain. It might be internet legend, fan fiction treated as fact, a creepypasta that's taken on a life of its own. But the rumor persists because it feels true. Gravity Falls has always had a dark undercurrent, content that pushes the boundaries of what's appropriate for children's programming. A lost episode containing content too dark even for Gravity Falls is believable. If such an episode exists, it's locked away somewhere, deemed too disturbing to release. The content would traumatize young viewers, reveal truths about Bill's capabilities that the show could only hint at in what actually aired. The lost episode is perhaps better remaining lost. Some secrets are too dark to reveal, some truths too disturbing to depict. The imagination is often more effective than explicit depiction, and what we imagine happened in Bill's pyramid might be worse than anything the show could safely portray. What lies beneath the town? Beneath Gravity Falls, there's more than just the weirdness deposit and Ford's bunker. There are caves, caverns, ancient structures that predate the town's founding. What else is down there? The show explores only a fraction of what lies beneath Gravity Falls. There could be entire ecosystems, civilizations, or horrors that have never been discovered. The dinosaurs that still live in underground caverns are just one example. What other prehistoric creatures survive in isolated underground environments? What happened to them when they were cut off from the surface world? And what about the ancient structures? Someone or something built them long before humans arrived. These builders might still be down there, deep beneath the surface, unknown to anyone in the modern town. The underground of Gravity Falls is a largely unexplored mystery. It could contain answers to questions no one's thought to ask, or raise new questions that no one wants answered. Ford's dimension, 52 incident. Ford mentions Dimension 52 briefly, a place he visited during his multiverse travels, a place where something terrible happened to him. What was Dimension 52? What happened there? Ford's reluctance to discuss it suggests trauma, events he'd rather forget. The show never elaborates. Dimension 52 remains a mystery, one of many adventures Ford experienced that we never see. But the mention is significant precisely because Ford doesn't want to discuss it. What could be so traumatic that Ford, who faced Bill Cipher and survived the multiverse for 30 years, doesn't want to talk about it? What happened in Dimension 52 that left such a deep scar? We can only speculate. Perhaps Ford was imprisoned there, or tortured, or forced to do things he's ashamed of. Perhaps he made choices in Dimension 52 that haunt him, actions he took to survive that he can't justify morally. Or perhaps Dimension 52 showed him something about the nature of reality that he wishes he could unknown, a truth so disturbing that simply witnessing it was traumatic. Whatever happened there, it's one of Ford's darkest secrets, and it will probably remain secret. Some experiences are too personal, too painful to share. Dimension 52 is Ford's burden, and he'll carry it alone. The Shapeshifter's original form. The Shapeshifter can take any form, perfectly mimicking any being it studies. But what is its original form? What does it look like when it's being itself? The show never reveals this. Every time we see the Shapeshifter, it's mimicking something. We never see its true form, its natural state. This might be because the Shapeshifter has no natural form. Perhaps it's existed for so long, mimicked so many beings, that it's forgotten what it originally was. Its identity is lost in the endless forms it's taken. Or perhaps its natural form is so disturbing that the Shapeshifter prefers to always wear a mask, to always be something other than itself. The Shapeshifter's lack of original form raises philosophical questions. If you can be anyone, are you anyone? If you have no fixed identity, do you have an identity at all? The Shapeshifter might be the ultimate expression of loss, a being that can be anything, but has lost what it actually is. It's powerful, but also tragic, capable of perfect mimicry, but incapable of authenticity. The weight of knowledge. We've spent hours now exploring every dark secret, every hidden detail, every disturbing implication in Gravity Falls. We've looked beneath the cheerful surface and found tragedy, trauma, and truths that were never meant to be obvious. This knowledge has weight. Once you see the darkness, you can't unsee it. Gravity Falls will never be just a fun children's show again. It will always carry these layers, these implications, these secrets we've uncovered. But that weight is part of the show's brilliance. Gravity Falls works on multiple levels. Children can enjoy the adventure and humor and weird creatures. Adults can appreciate the deeper themes, the hidden darkness, the complex characters. The darkness doesn't make the show bad. It makes it real. Real life contains darkness alongside light, tragedy alongside comedy, secrets alongside obvious truths. Gravity Falls reflects this reality, hiding its darkness in plain sight for those willing to look. The importance of hidden things. Why did Gravity Falls hide so much? Why embed secrets in codes, backwards messages, background details? Partly because it's fun. Puzzles and mysteries engage viewers, create communities of fans working together to decode messages, reward attention, and dedication. But there's a deeper purpose too. The hidden content creates a world that's richer, than what's obviously present. It suggests depth, layers, complexity. It makes Gravity Falls feel real in a way that more straightforward shows don't. Real places have histories, secrets, truths that aren't immediately obvious. Real people have depths that aren't visible on first meeting. By hiding content, Gravity Falls becomes more like reality. Complex, layered, requiring work to truly understand. The hidden content also allows the show to address darker themes than would be appropriate in obvious ways. Children watching won't notice the coded confessions of suicide ideation in Ford's journal, but adults who decode them will find a more mature, complex character than children's programming usually offers. The legacy of secrets. Gravity Falls ended years ago, but fans continue discovering new secrets. New codes are decoded. New background details are noticed. New connections are made. This ongoing discovery is part of the show's legacy. Gravity Falls didn't just entertain, it created a puzzle that continues engaging people long after the final episode aired. The secrets ensure Gravity Falls remains relevant. There's always something new to find, some detail previously missed, some connection not yet made. The show rewards repeated viewing and careful attention in ways that most shows don't. But the legacy of secrets is also a reminder of what we might still be missing. How many secrets remain undiscovered? How many messages are still encoded, waiting for someone to finally decode them? The complete story of Gravity Falls' secrets may never be fully told, because we may never find them all. And perhaps that's appropriate. Some mysteries should remain unsolved. Some secrets should stay hidden. Some darkness should stay in shadow. The comfort of darkness. There's something comforting about exploring darkness in a safe way. Gravity Falls lets us confront disturbing themes, trauma, manipulation, identity loss, cosmic horror, while knowing it's fiction, knowing we're safe. This exploration can be cathartic. It lets us process fears and anxieties through story. It gives us language and framework for understanding difficult experiences. The darkness in Gravity Falls is real in its emotional truth, even though it's fictional in its literal content. The feelings it evokes, fear, sadness, unease, are genuine, and experiencing those feelings in a controlled way can help us handle them in real life. So as we close this journey through Gravity Falls' dark secrets, remember, the darkness serves a purpose. It makes the light brighter by contrast. It makes the victories more meaningful. It makes the show more than simple entertainment. It makes it art. Sweet dreams. We've reached the end of our exploration. We've uncovered every secret we could find, examined every dark implication, explored every hidden truth. Your mind is full now of codes and conspiracies, of traumas and transformations, of all the darkness that Gravity Falls tried to hide. But as you drift toward sleep, let that darkness settle. Let it find its place among all the other things you know. Don't let it disturb your rest. Because here's the final secret, the one that makes all the others bearable. The darkness in Gravity Falls is balanced by love. Stan's love for Ford, Dipper and Mabel's love for each other, the found family of the Mystery Shack. Even in the darkest moments, love persists. That's the real message, hidden beneath all the secrets and codes and dark implications. Love is stronger than manipulation. Connection is stronger than isolation. Family, chosen or blood, is stronger than chaos. Bill Cipher, with all his power and knowledge and billions of years of existence, was defeated by family, by a brother willing to sacrifice himself, by twins who chose each other over their fears. The darkness is real, the secrets are real, the trauma is real, but so is the love. And in the end, that's what matters most. So rest now, traveler. Let the secrets settle into dreams. Let the darkness become background to the light. Gravity Falls has taught you its hidden truths. Now, let it teach you one more thing. Even in the weirdest, darkest, most mysterious places, you're not alone. You have family, you have friends, you have love. And that's the greatest mystery of all, how something as simple as caring about each other can be strong enough to save the world. Sweet dreams, trust no one, but love everyone. Good night.